Okay, we're here again, Giovanni.
Steps I Took podcast.
Episode Who Knows?
Yeah, and we might add top rated in the UAE now.
We
Middle
are
East,
in the
actually.
Middle
Middle East. Not UAE, Middle East.
Congratulations.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks. Shout out Cosmopolitan for the feature.
Yeah, really happy with that. Nice surprise. Shout out to more surprises in
Yeah.
this year for 2025.
Definitely thrive. I like the product placement there.
Always.
I think it's good that, we're being recognised for what we're doing 4 months into the journey. A podcast that invites people to come on and share the steps that they took towards greatness or on their journey,
Exactly. We all have a journey and all of our stories are worth telling. Whether you resonate with it or it helps you on your path, it's all about sharing the words of wisdom that you've picked up along the way.
100%.
So today, with her lovely words of wisdom, we have a fabulous woman who has been through a hell of a lot for her whole journey, from young to where she is now, from different careers to finding her purpose, from losing a ton of weight, from understanding her own emotions and how that plays a big impact on her life. We have the emotional eating therapist, Natassia.
Welcome.
Thank you for the warm welcome. Thank you for having me at this beautiful studio.
Yeah, thank you for being
coming.
here. Before we kick things off, we have a tradition on the podcast where we ask all our guests the same question. And that question is, can you give us a highlight over the last 7 days?
Do you know what? I would say the Future Human Mind Valley event that I was on the weekend. I got to meet Stephen Bartlett, Jay Shetty, a lot of people that are in that space that I would like to be at someday, and just hearing how they operate their routines, that was a blessed moment for me.
What was your biggest takeaway to help you operate?
Do you know, my biggest takeaway was Lisa Nichols. I don't know if you guys have heard of her. She is an amazing motivational speaker. It's the way I have really built a lot of resilience and strength over the past 5 years. And it's the way she made me break down, not just me, but 8,000 of us break down. You got to break yourself to make yourself stronger. And that's what she showed us there. For me, that was really key, that, no matter what I want to build along the way, there's going to be that breakdown process that everyone needs to accept. I need to accept. And I think that was really big for me.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
She's
lots
amazing.
of people, when they get to that breakdown period, they freak out and they might give up.
Absolutely. But it's actually your starting point to now you've got it right. Now you have a fresh slate to keep moving forward. And that was, I've known it, but just to see a woman empower a room like that and show them that they can do it, that was my biggest takeaway.
What was that process for breaking down? How did that, how did she do that?
She really went into her darkness and what she was the kind of speaker. I've never seen a speaker cry, but bless this woman. Like, she'd cry on camera, and then 2 minutes later, it's like someone's following her around, touching her makeup, because then she'd look flawless. But so she went through her personal journey, and then she got us thinking about our deepest, darkest moments where we felt like we had nothing, and how we felt. And she's really in tune with that emotion. And so I kind of went back to my moments where I had nothing and I felt hopeless. And she really makes you relive that moment, but not look at yourself as a helpless person, but look at yourself as someone that you're going through a learning journey now. What are the tools that you can take, even if it's food stamps, even if it's asking people for money or asking someone for help, and how can you leverage on that? And that was key, because when you think of things like borrowing money or food stamps, you think like, wow, that made me really weak. But if it wasn't for that moment, you wouldn't be the person that you are today, right? Sitting here in front of her in a VIP ticket, being able to absorb her and take her in. So it was big. It was really, really big.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Talking about the journey in general, we like to always bring it back to the young you. So what were you like as a kid growing up?
Oh, my God. As a kid growing up, I was very shy, very, very, very shy. I struggled with obesity for a majority of my life. So my weight was constant topic of conversation. I was so used to it, like, Natassia, the fat kid's here, or, so, but I also had a great childhood. My parents, they did their best. They gave me everything that they could, but, the weight kind of did set me back in certain things that my friends could do that I couldn't. I love to laugh. I always love to laugh. I like to be the little clown of the room, which has changed as I've become an adult, which is really interesting. But that was me as a child. Not very athletic. I'd like to say I was, but I wasn't. I'd love to eat. I loved food right from a very young age. That was me in a nutshell, pretty much.
So what's transition from being shy, but also comedic, being the fat kid, to now being this girl, not shy at all. Yeah. You enter a room, we know Natassia has entered a room, and not because you're being loud or making anyone laugh, but because you have presence.
Yeah.
So where's that kind of bridge? What bridged the gap?
I think it goes back down to that whole breaking down process. I was shy, comedic. I was a comedian because I would rather people know me for my comedy than see me for my weight. I was shy because I knew that my weight was always a topic of conversation. I was a people pleaser because if I don't give people what they want, then they won't accept me as a friend. They won't keep me in their friend group. And as an adult now, I don't have to be the comedian. I would like for you to take me seriously and listen to what I have to say. Don't get me wrong, I love a good laugh, right? But you kind of realize your value and your worth and what you bring to the table and how you can change people's lives. And that's what I would rather be known for. All of that was fun. She was still a fun Natassia. I miss her sometimes, but it was a mask for things deeper that were just not getting addressed. Insecurities, trauma, being a people pleaser, just saying yes to everything just because even if you hated it, someone would say, hey, you want to go here? And in my heart, in my gut, I was like, I actually don't. But then I'm thinking in my head, but she might not call me. She might not want to be my friend. She might go to someone else. So I'd say yes. And now, no is no. I don't want to do it. No, I'm sorry.
Seems like you're very aware of like your sort of behavioral habits when you were younger, and on reflection, you're able to kind of identify why you perhaps behaved in the certain ways that you did.
Yeah.
Where was that point of realization?
That point of realization has only come up in the past 4 or 5 years. When I met Achasa for the first time, I would say it was sparked then, but not to the level that it is now. I've done a lot of work as far as therapies, seeing psychologists, healing work, breath work, spending time alone. I was the kind of person, I hated being alone. I hated being with myself, sitting and listening to my thoughts. And I was FOMO all the time, like, oh, you're going here? I need to join you. Or you're going here? I need to be there. So doing that work, really understanding who I was, it's scary. We don't want to see that dark side of us, right? Because what's waiting on the other side is guilt, shame, your past mistakes, how you treated yourself, how you treated other people, the yeses you've said, the nos you've said. And once I started realizing that all of that was just a part of me, it wasn't going anywhere, I was tired of pushing things under the rug and pretending things were not happening. That's when real change really started to come. I had to see that, let's say for lack of a better word, dirty side of me or bad side of me to bring out the good side.
And I know you talked about being obese as a child. Are you able to share sort of just for, I guess, listeners or people watching, just in terms of like how much you weighed back then? Or?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So at my heaviest, I was 145 kilos. The weight creeped back it creeped up very quickly, very, very quickly. You can, even if you look at pictures of me as I'm growing up, you'll see me at about 5 years old, kind of obese then 6, 7, 8. At 12, 13, I was the heaviest one in my class, and that kind of creeped up even well into my 20s. So at about 20 years old, I was 145 kilos, heaviest in my family, very, very hard. 20, we were there already. But when we were in Dubai when I was younger, it was very hard to find clothes for me, for my size, for my age, because plus size wasn't a thing here. You couldn't get plus size clothes made. And then along the way to where we are right now, so it's been about a 65 kilo weight loss journey overall.
That's amazing.
Wow.
It's gone up and down, but lessons learned again, but 65 kilos, yeah.
But being looked at as obese or overweight at 5 years old, that's the beginning of your life. So that means is it right to say negative eating habits or a bad attachment to food started at a very young age?
Absolutely.
So what's helped you to combat that now?
So you're absolutely spot on. It started at a very, very young age. I didn't realize it then, because what people tell you is, oh, you just eat so much and you have no motivation and you have no control. But what I've realized right now, one, awareness is really key. I realized that the way I looked at food was very different from the way my sister looked at food, from the way my friends looked at food. I looked at food and thought to myself, can I have all of that and how can I get more? Whereas someone else looks at it and says, oh, that's good, I can try it out. So the awareness was I was addicted. And if we look at addiction, we're using that substance to cope in some shape or form. And I had thought myself at a very young age that I don't feel good, I don't feel great, I feel not nice, I feel dirty, and this item is going to make me feel better. As an adult now, I have expressed emotions that I never was able to express as a child. I never expressed anger. I never expressed sadness. I never expressed disappointment because I just didn't want to disappoint anyone. If you asked me what stress was back then, I would say, oh, I've never experienced stress. Everyone loves me. But I was also a very obese child. If you ask me now what stress is, I'll tell you, I can write a book. I can write a book on what's happened to me just over the past week. But it's that learning to express yourself better. I'm still navigating it. You know, there have been moments where I used to never get angry. And along the way on this journey, I picked up anger as a rage. I'm trying to now navigate that because you can't go to the other extreme and be like, yeah, I'm just, yelling all over the place.
Where does that come from, the anger?
I would say for me personally, the anger comes from two sources. One, mimicking what my mother used to do when we used to grow up. She was quite a hot-tempered woman. And so now that I'm learning to express emotions, we go back to what we're most familiar with, what we know best. So my brain is going back to, oh, that's the way she used to yell. That seems familiar. Why don't you mimic that? And I see it sometimes. I'll be talking to my partner. I'll be talking to, and not my team. I'm very, very respectful, but it's usually my partner, poor guy, It's usually him. I'll say something and then I'll quickly go back 5 minutes later and I'm so sorry. I was like, that's my mom, like that was her coming out. I would say that's one. And the other aspect I think is pent up as well, which that has gotten better now that I'm able to really learn to regulate. But in the beginning, it was pent up. I would have all these feelings that I would just push down with food that when it started coming out, they would just come out as outbursts, which has cost me a lot of friendships. It's cost me a lot of relationships because you become a dumping ground, right? You just sit there and you dump and you're like, yeah, that doesn't bother me. Let me just eat a donut. And what she said about me or my outfit, that doesn't bother me. Let me just eat some more till you reach a point where you can't take it anymore, or I'm not an emotional eater anymore. And it just all kind of has to come out. It's like verbal diarrhea. That's kind of what happens.
Do you know the point where it started as a child in terms of, was there like a trigger point or anything?
If I navigate back, so I've done a lot of hypnotherapy, which has done regression, so bringing you back to your childhood. And we've taken it back as far as when I was about 5.5, 6 years old. That's when so I'm a victim of sexual trauma, and that's kind of where it started. When we go back in that time in my hypnotherapy, I have seen moments of myself getting addicted to food, looking at, going into the kitchen. We had a housekeeper at the time, going into the kitchen, going for second, third helpings of food. I've seen moments where I felt really uncomfortable and I would take money from my parents' wallet to go buy more chocolate, eat more chocolate. Not that we didn't have it at home, not that my parents ever said no to me. But when I go back in time now, it started at that very, very young age. So what I have now come to understand is that it was my very early coping mechanism early on. We can get addicted to alcohol, sex, drugs, gambling, shopping. But as a child, when you're going through feelings of discomfort, the easiest thing that you can find to cope with is food. And food provides you that dopamine. It makes you feel good. You're eating sugar. Good. Yeah. And so if I related back, I would say what started out as something very emotional then ended up becoming habitual for me over time. And it just kind of kept growing from there.
Honestly, I'm like, whoa.
Your journey is what's kind of led you to, I guess, doing what you do today and helping others, I guess, on the same kind of struggle journey. And
you spoke about regulating. Now, I think a lot of people struggle with being able to regulate their emotions, and a lot of people have outbursts without, obviously it's an outburst, so it's uncontrollable, supposedly, if you haven't learned these regulating techniques. So what kind of things do you do to help regulate yourself?
I do a lot. I would say I do a lot. One is definitely walking, going for walks. And I have a lot of people tell me at times, Natassia, you post 10,000 steps, so you do this. And I say, look, I do that because, as I told you guys, I'm high functioning anxiety. I need an outlet, not an outlet where I'm listening to something. I just need an outlet to walk, just kind of calm my hormones down, getting dopamine boosts like the sunlight, walking, and just kind of being present with yourself. That's something. Working out is something that's really, like, if someone pisses me off, if I book a kickboxing session, like, that's the best thing that can happen for me. So I just picture that person's face on that bag and I'm good to go. That's something. Talking, showing gratitude. Really, we all have bad days. We all have bad days, but how can we tell ourselves we're safe? So when we're feeling dysregulated, the common emotion that people feel is, I feel unsafe. I don't feel like myself. I feel like out of this body. And so when we do some things as saying, I'm just grateful. I'm grateful for being here around you guys. I'm grateful for this matcha, your body gets a sense of calmness. It gets a sense of safety. So those are my primary go-tos. I do still do a lot of breath work. I still do, being around people. Those kind of things help as well. But I need these elements in my life because I've had to teach myself, how can I self-soothe? How can I cope? How can I deal with life without food? And it's hard in the beginning because all your brain says is, oh, you feel uncomfortable right now? Just go eat something. It's going to take all your problems away. And so in the beginning, it was like, oh, no, I can't do that, And it's teaching your brain that I can do anything, but I can't eat. I can do anything to feel better right now, but I can't eat. And then along the way, you kind of pick the things that work better for you.
Yeah.
So it's like a trial and error kind of period
It's
for
a
yourself.
big trial and error. So usually sometimes when people work with me, they think, well, what works for you? And I was like, what works for me won't work for you. And we just actually did this yesterday with a client. I was giving her an example of someone else who does a skincare routine now in the time where she used to eat a lot. And it really calms her down. She does this like 11 Korean skincare step. I don't know. I would never have the patience for it, right? But she's like, Natassia, just doing everything, it just allows me to be really present with my body. And I shared this with another client and she's like, nope, that's not happening. She's like, but I can read a romance novel and kind of get really lost in that. I said, well, then let's try that. If that's going to help you from that nighttime eating, let's try it.
It's actually quite beautiful because people are finding a new outlet or a
Yeah.
new hobby or something that actually helps them
Exactly.
in one
Exactly.
area of
It's
their
almost
life.
like replacing a habit, like a bad habit, with a good habit.
Exactly.
But what are there like any sort of clear signs that, indicate that someone's addicted to food?
Yeah. This goes back to emotional eating in general. As human beings, we're all emotional eaters. We all emotionally eat. Birthdays, celebrations, graduations, promotions, that's emotional eating. Now, emotional eating becomes a cause of concern if you're dealing with obesity, if you're using food to numb out your emotions, if you're eating food and you're feeling guilt or shame after. These are the kind of things that they're red flags. They're red flags along the way. I have people that come to me that don't struggle with weight at all, but every time they feel angered, every time they are not able to speak their words, speak their voice, they want to eat 3 pizzas and then want to, feel really guilty, sometimes get feelings of wanting to throw up. And so these are the kind of red flags that you would see along the way that are, I would say, detrimental if you don't get them addressed sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and when you say guilt, and I'm asking this partly because I'm trying to self-diagnose if I've got an addiction or anything. But like, when you say feel guilty, because like I like to go to the gym, but if I have like a chocolate bar afterwards, I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have had that. But that's probably like a mellow level of guilt in comparison to what I think you might be referring to. Or
Yeah.
Is there like a scale kind of?
Yeah, I mean, emotional eating, binge eating, food addiction, just like anything else, goes on a spectrum, right? If you have a mellow guilt, I always say ask better questions, you'll get better answers, right? And so I would ask you, why are you feeling guilt? Are you feeling guilt because you're on a mission to get to 25% body fat and that is not in line with your goals, right? Or you're feeling guilt because you don't want chocolate to be a part of your life. Because sometimes we have inbuilt desires or things that people tell us are not good for us, and then we live on that notion. But who said chocolate's bad? Like, we can have a piece of chocolate, but if you're having an undying belief or a value system that you're trying to put forward in your future and chocolate's not aligned with that, that's where that guilt's coming from. When if you were telling me, no, I feel guilty because I should never be having chocolate, now we have something deeper there that I need to address, because it's like, who told you don't have to have chocolate? There's some sort of restriction going on there. And if there's a restriction, there's more than likely a binge on the other side of it. So that's kind of where it goes on the spectrum of that guilt.
Interesting.
It is very interesting, because I feel most people don't think that deeply about things. However, to be able to overcome something, you need to, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm interested in the kind of trials that you've had to go through, because you've been on this journey of career transition. You weren't always an emotional eating therapist. Obviously, now you are. At one stage, you were doing both at the same time.
Yeah.
And at one stage, you were transitioning, COVID hit, you lost a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I can imagine if I put myself as a chasser into your shoes, I'm going for the food.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot going on, and how do you manage it, and all these, to be able to regulate yourself. Okay, it's great going for a walk, but that's not going to pay my bills. It's great, and it's not going to necessarily make me feel immediately better or give me that instant gratification. So how did you manage all of that?
Wow, that was, so this was during COVID. And so I have now maintained my weight loss for close to about 13 years. Been able to really, I've had peaks where I've gained the weight back. I gained back 30 kilos at one point right after losing it. This is when I kind of realized my relationship with food was much deeper. It wasn't just diet and exercise. It's not like I needed the perfect diet and exercise to get me to where I needed to be. When COVID hit and lost my job, like really had to, just started doing this on the side. I was the first time in many, many years I started picking up those bad habits again. I started seeking out food much more than I needed to provide me a sense of satisfaction. And food was cheap, right? Yeah, I couldn't afford to pay my bills. I couldn't afford to pay my loan. I had to sell my car. But hey, McDonald's is what, 20 dirhams? Yeah, no problem. I can do that. And it makes me feel better, sure. But, and it's hard. It's so hard when you're going through some of the toughest times in your life to tell yourself, I need to be on a diet. I need to be eating well. I need to, because you go back, when your back is against the wall, you go back to what you know best, right? And I was going back to what I know best. But the things that were keeping me grounded was working out. It was keeping me grounded. I could see the weight creeping back up. I could see it happening very much so. And what was so difficult was, making that decision to quit my job, having clients come on board, my weight slowly creeping back up, not being able to pay my bills, and clients relying on you to eat better and lose weight. So it's like imposter syndrome. Like
It's a lot of pressure.
Exactly. Like you're paying me to teach you how to be the best version of yourselves when I'm kind of questioning what I'm doing with myself right now. And so it was very, 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 very difficult. But I had to apply what I was teaching to people, what I knew best on myself. And so it had to go down to, okay, Natassia, today, how are you going to hold yourself accountable? And I like to work things in 1%, in 1%. Like, what can you do this week? For yourself, what can you do this week? So it would go back down to, okay, I don't want to track this week, but let's eat some whole food, which meant that I can feel full, because something that really helps emotional eaters and binge eaters is we love the feeling of feeling full. We love it. It gives us satisfaction, and it helps us distract away from the real problem. And so I said, okay, you can feel full, but it needs to be more nutritious. That's kind of something that helped me. Another thing that helped me really, really was being able to get guidance and open about the guilt and shame that I felt about my financial issues. I was living in secret. I was on Instagram, and people are like, wow, like she must be living the life. And no one knew what was happening behind closed doors. No one knew that I was juggling the dice every month on what bill was going to get paid. Is it my rent? Is it my loan? Like what's going to get paid this month? And so when I started speaking to friends and, letting them know, and it's so crazy, you speak to people and they too have gone through similar situations in their life. So that really helped. Not living in secrecy and being able to talk to someone about it really, really helped. And they gave me advice. They gave me perspective. So slowly building that, how and when I got the courage to leave my job through all of this nonsense, right, was something beyond me. But a part of me knew that if I didn't quit my job, I wouldn't be able to burn and crash the way I did to build it up to the level that the person sitting in front of you here today. I still don't know how I got that courage. I really don't. I had a client at the time who said, you look like you don't like what you're doing and you're getting paid such a little amount. I'll provide you what you need and do what you need to do on the side. And so I just did it. I went
That's
into
amazing.
work. Yeah, I just went into work and I quit. And mind you, the client at the time then ended up wanting me to be her personal assistant and full time. What she promised me was not what she wanted me to do, and so I couldn't even take that opportunity. So then I was left with nothing.
What were you doing out of curiosity?
So I used to be a retail beauty manager.
Okay.
That's what I was doing at that time. But yeah, that's kind of where, I had to navigate the waters. And there was a little bit of this, a little bit of that. There was a lot of crashing and burning, But when you slow down and you believe in what you do and you actually practice what you preach, that's what was missing. I wasn't practicing what I was preaching. I knew it was going to work for me, but when you're so burnt out, when you're so devastated, when you're so, in debt to so many, it's hard. But if you can find hope, even if it's just a 1% chance of hope, and build on that, it gets better. It gets much better.
How did you also keep yourself accountable? Because lots of people come to any kind of therapist, coach, or whatever it is for accountability, because it makes sure that you do whatever it is that you know you should be doing. But for you, it's just you.
Yeah.
So who was keeping you accountable?
Do you know, 3 things. God kept me really accountable. My clients kept me really accountable. And gratitude kept me really accountable. God, because, I would look up and I would always say, there has to be a lesson here. Like, there's no way you're putting me through so much shit, so much. I don't even have furniture in my house. And there's not something good waiting for me on the other side. Clients, because I had to show up for them. Maybe I couldn't show up for myself to a certain degree. I just admitted to someone the other day that in between clients, I was so devastated sometimes. I would finish off from a client and just go back in bed, like just hurl into bed until my next client, because I couldn't function at times. But seeing them and seeing the hope and seeing their successes along the way made me believe that I've got something here, I need to cherish this. And gratitude, because through your darkest times, if you can at least sit there and say, I'm grateful that I have a roof over my head. I'm grateful that I can eat today. I'm grateful I was able to pay my phone bill. That kind of then helps with that whole regulation piece. So those would be the 3 things that I still look at today at times.
Yeah, still lean on.
Yeah, absolutely.
And do you support your clients to then have the kind of same methodology as you? Not necessarily the same lessons or the same thought process, but to have whatever it is that they need to lean into.
Yeah, absolutely. It's gratitude. I think gratitude gets downplayed a lot. And I've been doing a lot of research now on dopamine and how we can get natural dopamine in our body. And there's so many scientists out there that saying just being thankful. We're so easily able to criticize ourselves. I'm not good enough. And look at this. And look at me. Look at that. I didn't do this and I didn't do that. And in that moment, just saying, but this is kind of what's happening for me. Immediately your body's like, oh my God, she still loves me. It's not just hate, it's she still loves me. So that's something I instilled right from the very beginning. 99.9% of the people that I work with, they hate gratitude. They hate me when I'm speaking to them and I was like, okay, that's great. That sounds like a really bad day, but what is something you're thankful for? And they just look at me.
Nothing.
Exactly. They just look at me and they're like, did you just not hear what I told you? And I was like, no, I get it, but where's the silver lining? And just the minute they start talking about the silver lining just changes the direction of the conversation. So I would say that is the most prominent.
Yeah, it's actually crazy how just that moment of gratitude can change your perspective on everything. I remember in lockdown, a group of friends, we just started, obviously there was so much going on during COVID and stuff, and we just had a group chat and it was like each day, I'm grateful for this today. And it was like a list and then the person would add their thing on. And we did that throughout the whole of lockdown.
That's really nice.
Yeah,
That's
and so sometimes we
amazing.
look back at it and it's just like, do you know what? Like actually, yeah, there's always going to be dark moments, but there's always like good things that you can kind of draw out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it changes the game. I was speaking with a lady the other day saying how her and her partner, before they go to bed at night, they say 3 things that they're grateful for. And I was like, that is so beautiful. She's like, Natassia, it's just changed the game for us, There's a lot to say. It's something that's so tiny, but it does wonders.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
What are you grateful for today?
What am I grateful for today? Well, I'm grateful for being here. That's for sure. I'm grateful for being with you guys and being able to share this story for thousands to listen to. I'm grateful for the people that believe in me. You know, it allows me to do better, push myself to even, you need a purpose, you need a why. And sometimes you ask me that, you're like, what kind of kept you accountable? My why is people believing in me. People, because I could never see it for myself. When you're that obese, when you're that overweight, you think you're gonna amount to nothing. People tell you you're gonna amount to nothing. My family's told me you're gonna amount to nothing, and so you kind of have that negative belief system about yourself. So people believing in me says, no, I can do it. I should do it. I feel like I could better myself. So I would say that's something I'm grateful for, and just being surrounded by positive people. I think being surrounded by the right people really, it really keeps you focused. You're the average of the 5 people you hang around with, and I'm grateful for the 5 people.
Yeah. And you mentioned just on the whole, your family, saying that you'd amount to nothing. And like now when, what's the relationship like with your family and in particular those family members who maybe have seen the transition and the journey that you've been on?
That's a very, very good question. So unfortunately, I'm not at a point yet where I have a great relationship with my family. I actually have very, very minimal communication with them. And I'm okay with that. I'm completely okay with that. I am a strong believer. I have a podcast of my own. I call it Breaking the Cycle. And I'm a strong believer in individuals that need to break generational traumas. You have to let go of a certain part. And for a very long time in my life, I felt like these claws that were, deeply ingrained in my back, that every time I would move 5 steps forward, it was pulling me 3 steps back. And so sometimes people say, do you make the right decision? And I say, maybe I did, maybe I didn't, but I think it's a bit coincidental that ever since I've changed that relationship, my life has basically quantum leaped 10 into, 20 into. So there's a lot to say about that. Am I going to leave it that way? I don't think so. I will definitely make an effort to change it. But, I don't believe they get me to that degree that I would like them to. At a very young age. I remember even telling my dad when we were on a plane and we were passing these business class seats. I was like, oh, Dad, I want to sit here one day. And my dad looked at me and he's like, that's not for you. That's for rich people. And that sentence, and I was 5 years old at that time. That sentence, to this day, I remember it so well. And if your own family is telling you, like, that's not for you, but you want to be here, it kind of just shows you where their level at. Doesn't make them bad people, but it's just not your people to get you to that level.
Yeah.
They don't have even the dreams of getting there.
Yeah.
And to shut down, lots of people, in fact, shut down children's dreams without even realizing it, just because it's so passive for them to say such things, which is actually very sad.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Shows how powerful like your words are and you know, how piercing they can be, especially to someone impressionable like a 5-year-old.
Yeah. And for me to remember it so well in my 30s, so you can see, and I never want that. I never want that for myself. I never want that for children. I always want my children, I want more. I want to do more. I want to challenge it. I want to fail while I'm doing it. Failure was seen as such a thing to be ashamed about. Like, oh, you failed. You shouldn't tell anyone. But the most successful people, the most successful entrepreneurs have failed. They failed left, right, and center. And I don't believe that certain individuals, my family included, accepted or viewed failure very well. And it's a shame, but it's the harsh reality.
Definitely agree. Failure does help create very pivotal moments in all of our journeys, professional and personal. But I feel like as well, leaning back into gratitude and how a lot of us aren't grateful enough, sometimes there's some really pivotal moments in something spectacular that happens. So is there any pivotal moments that have happened for you that have been really positive?
Pivotal moments for me, I would say, would be my international clientele. So as you know, when I was doing the transition, it was my client base was primarily Dubai. So 75% of people that were seeing me on social media, contacting me. And then somewhere along the way, I had a video. I was on a podcast, actually. I had a video on TikTok about 2 years ago that hit, I think, 6 million views, 7 million views. And that's when it went viral and it went international. And it's never turned down. From then, so I'm truly, truly grateful. So my client base now in Dubai is about 25%, but 75% of my clients are international, global clients, which I I never thought that I would be the kind of person sitting here saying I'm helping people globally. It like I get shocked at times, but I would say for me that was really, really big. Hosting events, having people 350, 400 people attend. Again, no one, I sit there sometimes speaking to these women and men, and I tell myself, I can't believe this is you. Like, I can't believe this is what you are doing. And those would be some really, really big moments for me, because again, when you're told you're going to amount to nothing and you're never able to see yourself in that light, and it happens, it shows you what you've been missing out and what you're capable of. So I'd say those are some really big moments for me.
Yeah, they sound incredible moments.
Oh, thank you.
As well, it's interesting the way that you speak about them and reflect on how, I never thought that would be me, but you don't lean into imposter syndrome at all. So it seems like that you're deserving of these moments.
This has happened only over the past 2 years. I've done a lot of healing on imposter syndrome. I've done a lot of work. I've worked a lot on my languaging, on how I speak. So there's no such thing as I can't, I won't. And even if I do say it, I'll stop myself and recorrect it. And, there was something that I did for a very, very long time, which didn't allow me to grow. I would always look at myself as beneath other people, women in particular. I was like, oh no, she is higher in positioning than I am. She does better. She looks better. She has the hair, the skin, the nails, the bags. And I no longer do that. I walk into rooms and I tell, no matter how much that person has in net worth, in cars, in jewelry, in accreditation, I walk in and say, we're equals. I'm an equal. I walk in as an equal. And when I walk in as an equal, it allows me to be the best version of myself. And then that helps with the self-sabotage and everything of that sort.
That's great.
Yeah.
And what sort of stuff did you do to kind of psych yourself up to be like, I'm an equal? Because, everyone suffers imposter syndrome, like at some point in their life. And, like what like did you say to yourself to kind of like level and be like, yeah, you know what, I am equal? But how did you like actually tell yourself that?
For me, it always boils down to what do I bring at the table today, right? What do I bring? And it could be something as small. I mean, I am still a person, and anyone out there, no matter where they are, whether they're starting their entrepreneurial journey or you're at your corporate job or whatever, you're still bringing something to the table. We're so focused on all our flaws and things that we're not bringing, but you are bringing something to the table. And so for me, it started there. I said, hey, you know what? I might not have all the clients, but I quit my job. That's something, right? I might not be able to pay my bills, but I have clients when people are coaching for years and have no clients. That must be something. And then it kind of transitions. So then you build, your confidence gets boosted. Confidence is doing the same thing over and over and getting really good at it. And so then I would say, okay, now I'm able to do this. Now I'm able to try new things. I think the other thing as well is doing new things and either doing well at it or failing it and trying it again. That kind of helped the imposter, but really just meeting yourself where you are and pulling out those good qualities and then enhancing it. We just focus always on personal development and growth, but we're not even meeting ourselves where we are, which is where the imposter syndrome gets built. And I did that actually when I closed. Last year was one of my biggest years as far as financial turnover. And by the end of it, I remember telling my accountant, I was like, I don't believe that was in my account, no. And that's when she works a lot with the subconscious mind. And she's like, you better get that shit in control right now, because just as much as you're making money in, it's going to leave, So I had to really change that languaging and say, no, I'm worthy of this money. I work hard for this money. I show up for this money. And therefore it's reciprocating and coming back into my account. So it's a journey. For sure, I'm sure the next level of me is going to evolve even more, but I would start right there, like just meeting yourself where you are.
I love your mindset. I feel like I could listen to you talk for like hours and hours and hours. And because I've known you for years as well, like I don't think, we met up a few months ago, but I'm just like, wow, because I wouldn't even go as far as saying, oh, you just have such a positive mindset. I mean, you do, but it's more like progressive mindset where, okay, I have a thought. No, I'm not perfect. No, I'm not always thinking positively, but I do know what to do to change and alter my mindset to make sure I'm always showing up for myself and making sure that you're always doing something that's going to help you, your clients, or something for the day,
Yeah.
which is a really beautiful thing, honestly.
Thank you so much for saying that. I mean, look, at the end of the day, you know, people look at me sometimes and they're like, oh, you don't know what it feels like. And I know what it feels like. I was 145 kilos. I wasn't even able to look at a man in the eye and talk to them, you know, because of things that have happened in the past. And so I truly know what it feels like. I was never this person. I was never a person being able to talk about herself, her future, her confidence, you know, sit here, speak confidently. I was not. So I get what it feels like. And this is why I always go back to the past, because people are so stuck sometimes in their anxiety and their ways and what they do. And they think, no, that's just who I am as a person. And if anyone ever listens to me and hear me talk, I want them to know that this did not come naturally. I wasn't born in a family of leaders and confidence. And, you know, I always strutting my stuff. It never was this way. And if I can do it, then anyone can, honestly.
What would you say, like looking back to your younger self at 5 years old, when, you know, people are in your ear, or when you're in school and, you know, you're, you know, as you mentioned, I guess taking on the role of like the Klaus comedian, as it were. What would you say to your younger self?
Oof. I just tell her, hang in there, because it gets better. It gets better. Because I never thought it would. I would sit there, pick up my hair. You know, I remember moments where I would sit in that classroom, that exact 5-year-old comedian, and tell myself, I'd look up and I'd be like, why did you do this to me? Why did you give me such curly hair? Why did you make me so fat? Why did you give me brown skin? Why did you, you know, put me in a poor family? Like, I would just pick everything out. And I wish I could just go back and give her the biggest hug and say, everything that you have right now is literally going to be your biggest blessing. You just need to believe. You literally just need to believe. And I think, yeah, it makes me a little bit emotional thinking about it. But yeah, that's what I would say.
That's really beautiful.
Yeah.
What can you say as well to the men and women who are out there right now who are stuck in their rut and really struggling with that kind of progressive mindset? A lot of people say, oh, it's woo-woo, or it's fluff, or oh, I don't need therapy. And yeah, I know this is positive. I'm happy there's a roof over my head, but I want another job and I don't deserve this, and all of that kind of thing. What kinds of words of wisdom can you give them to help shift their mindset?
Words of wisdom. First of all, first things would be the gratitude element. I know we focus so much on gratitude, but just listing out, like even if you can just start by listing out the things that are going well in your life right now. Before you, even if someone embarks on a weight loss journey with me, I was like, you know what? Yeah, we're going to do this journey. We're going to do it together, no problem. But what's going right for you right now? Like, do you like to dress up? Do you know, what are the parts of your body that you do like? And usually when I ask someone that, they're like, oh, I don't know, my fingernails. And I was like, no. Like, what do you like about yourself? So anyone that's struggling, list out the things that are really working well in your life right now. So you know that, hey, I want all these things, but I've got a good foundation, because you can only build growth from a good foundation and safety. If you don't feel safe in any way, then the next question comes in, how can I build that safety? Right. And, you know, if there's a very famous philosopher out there, he works on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and he talks about how people need to develop, and they cannot develop if they don't have their basic needs, so roof over their head, food, water, things. Give yourself those checklists saying that I can go to the next level. And, you know, for someone like myself, feeling love, needed, I needed that. I needed that from my clients to be like, oh, wow, I'm doing something good. You know, my parents couldn't provide me that. They couldn't tell me, they thought I was making the biggest mistake doing what I was doing. And so if you have someone, surround yourself with people that would support you. If it's about getting into entrepreneurship, be around entrepreneurs that say, that's a good idea. Like, work towards it, you know? That would be my 2 key takeaways: seeing where you are with the positives, and then surrounding yourself with people that will really support whatever that level of growth is, because you might not be able to see it, but the person that's been there, or the person that can support you, will be able to guide you and make you, you know, really bring out that belief that, yeah, you can do it, you know?
Yeah.
What would you say has been your biggest inspiration on this journey?
My biggest inspiration would be, it would definitely be, I always bring it back to my clients. It would definitely be my clients. They have really inspired me to do better. If I think about people in general, I wouldn't say there's one person in particular. There have been people that have inspired me to bring out the best version of myself. So if I look at someone like Joe Dispenza, or if I look at someone like Robin Sharma, they have inspired me to see life in a different way. But I would still say it's my clients. I would still say that. Like, they are the most inspiring people, and they make me really tell myself that I'm on the right path. I'm doing good. I'm doing good in the world. I'm creating change. So yeah, that would be my biggest source. You got me in that one. Definitely did.
Yeah.
So obviously you had an amazing journey. You're doing amazing things. You've gone from working in a retail job to working for yourself, being a coach. Now you're a therapist, on the journey of supporting people with food as well as exercise. And now you're at the level where you're at hosting events for 300 plus people. What is next for Natassia?
Next is couple different things. So one is really building my online community and platform, something that I really wanted to focus on over the last year and this year is making my services accessible to all. Emotional eating, like we talked about, is people struggle with it. And everyone struggles with it in some shape or form, depending on where you are on the spectrum. So for me, it's making my services accessible. So I created a platform which was so easy for people to, affordable as well, and for people to be connected. Emotional eating is something that people struggle with in silence. So I have women from all over the world there saying, hey, you overate, so did I. My husband pissed me off and I wanted to go in the car to eat. So that's really building that community is going to be really important for me this year. Next would be showcasing my story to a level that I think I haven't in the past. There are areas of my life that people know about. I'm only now opening up, talking about my finances and what I have been through, but it's helped me. So really taking that next level and showcasing the darker side of me, because if people follow me now on Instagram or TikTok, they get to see Natassia now. And I think it's really good to take them through that journey, take them through the journey when I was dating, when I was overweight, when a guy, I remember once telling me, oh, if you want me to date someone like you at 145 kilos, you need to pay my phone bill, like talking about stories of that sort, right? Like, this is it. So when I share these kind of stories, people are like, and then it hits me like, that actually happened to you. Why aren't you talking about it? So really exposing that part of my life, which I've kept in a really secret corner. That's something that everyone's going to be seeing a lot more about this year. But yeah, that's kind of where we're taking things.
This is very exciting. And where can people find you?
Well, you can find me on Instagram, on TikTok under Natassia DSouza. I have a podcast focusing primarily on binge eating and emotional eating. If anyone is struggling or wants to know where they are on the spectrum, it's called Breaking the Cycle with Natassia. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I want to break that chocolate cycle, man. I can't lie. Yeah. I know we've spoken largely about like the eating disorder side of things. I just want to just touch on, obviously, you mentioned, you go for walks and gym and stuff. And as much as there's the emotional side of, I guess, regulating when you're eating, how much did the physical side play into you achieving your goals and, getting to where you are today?
The physical side played a huge role. I don't want to downplay that whatsoever. But it had to build up to it. So if someone is listening to this right now, 300 pounds, maybe on their couch, and they're thinking, oh, I've got to work out 5 times a week, I would say just start with walking. Just start, it's about meeting yourself where you are, and then building up to the physical. I was the kind of person, if I was downstairs and someone said, can you go up and get my phone? I would be out of breath just climbing up the stairs of my house. And now I'm up to 5 times, like 10,000 steps a day is a non-negotiable. Working out 5 times a week for me is a non-negotiable. Like, that's just it. I'm not the fittest I can be, but I'm nowhere where I used to be. So it plays a huge component, but it is 80% nutrition, 20% exercise. You can't out-train a bad diet, right? It always boils down to that. So I always tell people, before you start going on this weight loss journey, we need to identify where you are on the emotional eating spectrum. And then I like to call it movement, because sometimes you tell people working out or HIIT workouts or things of that sort, and they're kind of like, they freeze, especially someone who's never worked out before, they freeze. And so It does play a role as far as mental health is concerned. It definitely plays a role. But we live in a world now where you could literally put on a 15-minute workout on YouTube. That's it. You can sit in the comfort. You don't even need to change your clothes. You can just stay in your PJs and mark that as your movement. And if you can't even do it that much, then you don't really want it that bad. So if you really want it and you can't do it from the comfort of your own home in your PJs for 15 minutes, then we really need to question your purpose and your why. There is an element, but it's about building it up over time. So then getting to a point where, like 4 years ago, I ran a half marathon. I would have never, 25-pound Natassia never would have thought she would have run a half marathon. And in my defense, I thought a half marathon meant 10K. Like I had no idea. I found out on the day that I had to pick up my badge that it was 21 kilometers. Like that's what I found out.
Wow.
But, that's kind of how it gets set up.
Yeah.
Amazing.
That's really good.
So just before we go, we have a closing tradition on the podcast, and that is if you could implement one rule for everyone in the world to follow, what would it be?
Feel your feelings, don't feed it. That would be my one rule. Learn to really feel what you're going through. Stop masking it.
I like that one. We've never had that one.
No, that's really good.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
No more chocolate, Giovanni.
A little bit's okay. A little bit's fine.
For the record, it's not as bad as I've probably made it sound in terms of my addiction. But yeah. Thank you. Yeah, it's been
It's my
It's been
pleasure.
amazing.
It's my pleasure.
Really
Thank you
great.
so much for having me.
Yeah.
Honestly. Really enjoyed it.